Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Sharegiver podcast. I'm Rob Stoller with my brother David.
Morning, everyone.
And I'd like to remind you that these podcasts can be listened to anywhere podcasts are broadcast. Apple, Spotify, we'll get Google. We'll get the entire list to you. We'd appreciate your listening and your sharing with whoever may be involved in this situation and may be looking for help of this sort. David's been a caregiver for his wife Barbara for almost 15 years, and his experience is essential and I think can be extremely valuable. So please access the podcast, subscribe if you would. We need the support and we want to get the word out.
Yeah, my experience is unique to my experience. Obviously, people in this situation caregiving for someone that is impaired with dementia, and there are any number of forms of that. And they may be, in fact, more intertwined as we're learning more and more, heterogeneous. But what we're trying to do here is share insights that, I've obtained, and you have too, in observing me, of how to make this experience not just as effective as one can for your partner, but also as edifying and valuable for oneself.
Yeah, our previous podcasts have included an overview of the Sharegiver Solutions approach to sharegiving, which as the name implies, involves other people in your sphere, whether it's friends and family, as well as the global family member care network in the country and the world. In the U.S. alone, there are over 15 million family member caregivers. So we go over kind of the basics of the approach, and now we're in the midst of a series we're calling A Day in the Life of a Sharegiver. And we're taking it through a typical day from morning through night. We haven't reached night yet. But before we do, with regard to the intro, dementia is still such a large unknown. And I know it's been a source of some frustration to you as to whether or not Barbara actually has or had Alzheimer's, right, or a different form of dementia, of which there are many.
There's frontotemporal dementia, there's Lewy body dementia, there's vascular dementia, there's Alzheimer's dementia. And I think the truth is, at least in Barbara's case, as much as I've been able to determine, she shows characteristics that each of them, represent. So, but it's sort of irrelevant at this point. At this point, it is helpful to know and to be able to anticipate, because as we've said over and over, an important aspect of sharegiving is mindset, is being ready for whatever comes and being able to anticipate certain things and not be surprised.
And understanding that it's a tough situation that is not going to be resolved.
Yeah.
It's not getting better, but you can make your own situation as the sharegiver better, which will improve the quality of your care.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for understanding what you're dealing with. For me, I have a curiosity about these things, so the more I can learn, at least to the extent a layman can learn what at a certain point is really scientific. I read something that some of you may have, which is called the Alzheimer Forum, ALZ Forum. And each week they have articles that describe the latest developments in the field with commentary from other experts. I'm usually good for the abstract. Getting beyond that gets pretty technical. But I think for the sharegiver, sharing the experience also means sharing whatever one can learn about it. Sharing with your partner their experience is aided, in my view, significantly by your greater and greater understanding of what's happening to them. I think dealing with the day in the life, I think we covered the morning and certain aspects, and there's probably going to be some overlap, but I thought one of the things we could address today is sort of what I would call middle of the day, and whether that is involves the person that we have as a companion for Barbara that is here during the week, or myself, and I take over in any event at around 4 o'clock each day and or weekend. But what are the things that one can do to not only help pass the time, which sometimes can be a challenge, but that can be really edifying to the caregiver and constructive and effective programming for your partner. So I thought maybe we talk about that.
I think we should. And just a quick note or a reminder that although the Sharegiver Solutions podcast and platform is really predicated on David's experience, because I believe there's no substitute for that, we will and we have already recorded some experts in the field on the medical side, on the service side. We've got a lineup of authors who have written on the topic. So it's not just David's experience, but his experience supported and added to by various experts.
Yeah, some amazing people that we're going to be serving up in the next several weeks that have come at this in different ways. And among the most effective are those that have been in the position of a caregiver.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that, but
so we've come through breakfast and the morning drive and
breakfast,
morning walks.
We've had a morning drive. We've played a little music. I think we talked about the music that we usually start the day with, as I did today, which is something that is up tempo that gets Barbara going. A favorite is Ella Fitzgerald and the Tisket a Tasket. Play the Four Seasons, the Beach Boys, things that get Barbara dancing. And it does without fail.
Actually, another reminder, on the website, we will be posting videos. And some of those, one in fact that I shot last week, was of Barbara's instantaneous and visceral response to Ella Fitzgerald singing A Tisket a Tasket. She went from a dark mood, the source of which we didn't really know, but she didn't greet me with her typical warmth when I came in, and didn't even really go for David's hug. And as soon as he put Ella Fitzgerald on, she started dancing, and and she danced up the steps, came back down, danced with you, gave you a kiss, and it's really astonishing. So we will present that material as well on the website at sharegiversolutions.com.
Yeah, and maybe even some suggested playlists, at least, for Barbara. And I'll tell you, the morning is always upbeat. It is something that she can dance to. Sometimes it's a Zumba, specifically a Zumba station, which there are plenty of them that are free and available. But it was my view that this was the way for her to start the day. It makes her feel good. And whatever demons, have collected overnight, they get chased.
We've all seen the impact and the effect music has on our moods.
Correct.
You hear a song that takes you back to good times in the past or just makes you feel good. To see that in somebody who seems and is in some ways disconnected or just out of sorts, to see the instantaneous effect is striking.
Right. So music's big. We get into the day. We have sort of a programming that I use through a device known as Alexa, because she's listening now.
She's always listening.
She's always listening. So we'll go from dance music in the morning. Then after breakfast is after that. Then we'll put on the Broadway channel, which is something that really resonates with Barbara. Then in the afternoon, we'll play something that also she relates to, like 60s music. And so she'll hear Carly Simon and James Taylor and the Beach Boys and the Beatles. And then in the afternoon, when I'm with her and we go for a drive, which is usually around 4 o'clock, then we'll play the Beatles. The Beatles are on, and she is bopping away. She knows that music like most of us do that are, actually any age at this point. So music sort of punctuates the day.
I'm curious, not that I can think of what that music would be, but what is Barbara's response to music she hasn't heard before? Do you ever play music that she's not familiar with? Or maybe even if it's classical music? Or...
Yeah, I play a lot of classical because this is, again, to the point that I am sharing this experience and I'm looking for something that I can enjoy and learn from. Well, I love jazz and I love classical. So I play it plenty when I'm with her, especially in the evening. And she listens, she enjoys. I love it. I don't know that she loves it, but it provides, because in the afternoon we'll go for a ride, then we'll come back and it's always reading and writing time, which she loves. And then that's when I'll play jazz. That's when I'll play classical.
Yeah, that's a good point. It can be background music.
It's background.
As opposed to the
I'm
focal
listening
point.
to with maybe more interest, but she likes it.
Yeah.
And then we would have dinner usually around 6 o'clock. And right after that, we're watching television, a movie or a serial, and takes her right to bed. So I've skipped ahead to evening.
You did. We'll go back.
But let's go back to daytime. I think daytime, one of the things that I'm very aware of now, whereas I went from a much more sort of comprehensive idea of planned activities, where I was going to go from a learning exercise to a craft to a walk to a, game, etc.
All of which was spelled out on the whiteboard.
Correct. All on the whiteboard. I realized it's too much. It's too much. And I felt that it was also diminishing returns, that to the extent an activity might be memorable or meaningful to Barbara, it would get lost if we just had a whole menu of things. So we try to do a couple things a day, and maybe there's one that, there definitely is one that is a constant, and I'll start there, and that's our garden. So early on, and I think I was influenced by Oliver Sacks, who, if you haven't read him, he was a neurologist that really made it so interesting and clear the various neurological issues that came up in his practice that he wrote about. One of his most famous books was called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat.
Not familiar with it, but sounds interesting.
It's a great book. But he said in his experience, there were two things that could actually improve neural function. One was music, and the other was gardening. And so I took that to heart. So obviously music punctuates the day, and gardening is ever present, both inside when it's nice out, and outside, and inside, when it's not. But outside, especially on days like this, there is really nothing, I think, better than to walk in the garden, and we do that. And if I'm not here, our person that takes care of Barbara during the day makes sure to go for a walk. When I go for a walk with Barbara, we walk, we visit every tree. We smell the leaves because they smell, and we look up close and we see where there are new branches or buds. She's not as interested as I am, but she does it. She comes along. We add something to the garden. We try to do it, frequently, like each month or quarter, whether it's a stone that we're placing, or it's a shrub, or it's a ground cover, or it's grasses, or we're transplanting ferns. This is something we do all the time. And I feel that not only is it of interest, again, much more modestly than for me, but it's something that we do together. And it's also something that she can see the visible evidence of its change, of growth.
You think she can?
I think she can. The evidence is manifestly clear. Whether she is relating to it is another question. But again, it's less important. I don't know that. I won't know that.
Yeah.
What I do know is that it's an activity that we're doing together, and that she accommodates whether there's enjoyment.
Well, it's also just growth. I think natural growth is of interest, and I think that's what the garden provides. It's a lush,
right,
nature place.
There's another aspect to it, which occurs to me as we're talking. And we have like 3 different gardens, and one of them is specifically intended for, flowers and flowering plants. As you've observed, there's no flower or flowering plant that...
Flowers beware.
that is protected from Barbara's clippers, which are really her fingers. She cannot resist, whether it's daffodils, whether it's lilacs.
We've seen the tulips.
Tulips have not been spared. I now deliberately plant those things along the side garden and by the kitchen for Barbara. It's like her own cutting garden.
Well, that whole situation is interesting. The picking of flowers and sort of cutting of them, it's difficult to know where that comes from. It's, I guess, a cousin to her picking up things she passes and replacing them somewhere else in the house and wherever. But it occurs to me that the fact is she picks them and cuts them and does what she does because she's attracted to them. Correct. And they're beautiful.
Yeah.
I think she finds them beautiful.
Yes, and which goes to another point. I showed you a picture of, she brought in daffodils, an armful, and she arranged them perfectly on our black slate dining room table.
That picture will be on the website as well. It's incredible.
It's incredible. She did that all herself. And wow, that suggested to me some form of cognition that identified a design that was pleasing to her.
If anybody listening took those cut flowers and arranged them next to each other in a pattern on the table, it wouldn't have been any more precise than Barbara's.
Yeah. So another aspect, therefore, of the garden is that it does give her pleasure, even if it makes me nuts. Like, we have beautiful irises in front, purple irises. Well, we're in countdown, and already I'm seeing remnants everywhere.
Yeah, walk the other way.
And, if I say to Barbara, Barb, do you think you can, spare the irises for at least a few days because they don't look as good when they're dead?
No.
Yeah, I have not bought any reprieve by trying to appeal to Barbara's, higher sense.
Well, you may end up returning to your plastic flowers.
Correct. Well, yeah, and I do the plastic flowers. So the hanging baskets, which we're doing today, actually. So with the hanging baskets, I've learned a couple things. Number one, I don't take Barbara with me when we go to the garden center to pick them out, because not only does she not have the patience for it, but she's picking their flowers everywhere.
Yeah.
And as many times as I might say, Barbara, you can't do that. That's not ours. She'll do it. So she doesn't come with me.
Yeah.
At once I thought, oh, what a shame that she can't get the enjoyment, because we used to have pictures of each of our baskets and pots and match them to what we wanted. But I realized that's impossible. It's just a recipe for, a lousy experience. I pick them all, come home, and then when we're together, we empty all the old pots, we mix new potting soil in, we mush it around with our hands, which she loves doing. We refill the pots. Now, her participation in all of this is minimal, but we're doing it together. And then we plant according to, what we designed. The plants that are hanging baskets are pretty much out of reach for her, fortunately. The plants that are in pots, I have to expect that they're going to be decimated by a certain point. But we do that together.
That's kind of the cost of sharegiving.
It is the cost. Exactly.
And, this is a reminder that these activities, there's been somewhat of a transition over time from David incorporating activities that Barbara has traditionally enjoyed and doing those with her and his taking part, to more of a situation where David's doing things that he enjoys and Barbara is taking part, although obviously these are things that she gets some enjoyment from as well. But again, the Sharegiver approach puts a high priority on the Sharegiver's welfare and well-being.
Right. And so, that's sort of the outside plan. Those like centerpieces that we have sort of around our furniture and this and that, you will notice are almost exclusively plastic. They look pretty good. I've become a connoisseur of the most realistic plastic. And I also have to be prepared to find pieces all over the place. But they're generally reusable, and I get some satisfaction because they're attractive and pretty natural looking and relatively immune to, the destruction that otherwise would await them. Same thing inside. You may notice inside we also have, flowers that are artificial. But in this case, they're more artistic. They're designed to look artificial, but funky and interesting. So I get the benefit of that aspect, which is pleasing to me. And Barbara enjoys it. Barbara thinks they're real.
Does she pick the plastic
flowers?
flowers?
She picks the plastic flowers. But I find the pieces and I put them back. And so I used to want to cultivate indoor plants with Barbara, but, watering them and taking care of them and this and that. And I found, again, like many of you have, there are certain activities that just are, less and less viable and only cause aggravation. So you find a way to work around it, to substitute for it, to reframe the way you're looking at the situation. Okay, I like to have plants inside. So I'm going to have plants that are either really good lookalikes or are clearly not, that are design pieces that are just as pleasing.
I think the thought of kind of having plant shills, like planting some things that Barbara's going to pick, is a good idea. Why not buy a bunch of daisies or whatever?
Exactly.
That's your phone, and that's a no-no.
You want to pause? Should I shut it off?
Yeah, you should shut it off.
Okay.
Well, I think we've pretty well covered the flower issue.
Yeah, natural and artificial.
Natural and artificial, and the garden, and just the concept of shared activities, and even perhaps being activities that you favor, that Barbara takes part in. Because again, we want you to be happy. Right. And if you're happy, you'll be a better caregiver.
Yeah, and just a final note on the garden. Another thing that I love about it is that it is year-round. Not only can you bring stuff inside, but the garden itself takes on a whole different dimension as seasons change. And, I think this is interesting for someone to observe, even if their powers of observation are pretty muted. Even in the winter, walking in a garden, in the snow, and what pops up, and how the trees, the deciduous trees, lose their leaves as they lose them, and the evergreen maintain it. And just observing all of these things, again, is not just a way to fill some time, but it is promoting, to whatever extent is useful, the power of observation and taking pleasure.
Well, I mean, sitting around doing nothing will fill time, but that's not what we're talking about.
Correct.
And the fact is, gardening, we've seen the advent and growth of urban gardens and elevated gardens and all kinds of gardens. So the things that you enjoy and enjoy doing with Barbara are things many people enjoy.
Right.
And so it's filling time with a purpose.
Yeah. I think another activity that is a constant, in addition to what we've talked about, music and gardening, are photographs. Are in the category of craft. Now, once again, Barbara loves photographs.
Yeah.
And we have, as you know, a big bowl on our table in the living room that she is constantly sifting through, looking at. Unfortunately, also bending, cutting, defacing in various ways. Again, why?
Another cost of Sharegiver.
Why is that? I'm not sure. But those pictures that I want to share with her of family and certain events that are memorable, I keep separate. If they're pictures that I think are really special, I sort of take them out of harm's way. I fill that bowl with pictures that are disposable, that are still meaningful. They're all family, all events that she loves looking at. She'll stare at them for minutes at a time. Whatever she's thinking about, she loves holding them. And they're all over the house. And I pick them up and put them back in the bowl, and they end up all over the house. But I make sure that we go through it. And, it is meaningful to her. I believe it connects her somehow to those events, to that past, to what they represent.
Yeah.
Even if she can't tell me who those people are.
Yeah.
Which she generally can't.
And just as a really basic reminder, is the idea of asking questions.
Right.
So maybe, do you like this? A yes or no question is appropriate,
Right.
But do you know who this is? No. Do you know when that? Those are questions that would seem to make Barbara uneasy.
Right.
Even if she somehow does, I'm
Right.
sure there's kind of a panic as soon as you say,
Right.
do you know?
That's a great point. So what I do is I'll hold up a picture of her and Jody, and I won't say, "This is your, do you remember your sister?"
Yeah.
I'll say, "This is you and Jody. Look how much alike you guys are. Your sisters. She's beautiful. Isn't she beautiful? And you're beautiful." We'll do that with all the pictures. Wow, this is Jesse's wedding. Look how great they all looked. Look at so-and-so and so-and-so. And look at you. Or dancing. So it's always, I never really ask her, "Do you remember this?"
Yeah.
Or "Do you know who that is?"
Yeah.
I tell her who it is.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And the other way around, it makes it easy for her. And she's looking. And if you do it enough, she has some identification. But she loves looking at the pictures. And the same way, video. You have been great at assembling videos, and so is her oldest daughter, Samantha.
Yeah.
Has put together amazing videos. Whether she is in it or not, it's of family. It's of, her sister Jessica at age 7 singing "'Tis a Gift to
Her
Be
daughter.
Simple." What did I say?
Her sister.
Her daughter, her middle daughter. But so we always do that, every day.
Yeah.
Or I have Christina go through photos with her. And now when Christina asks her, "Who is this?" it's a little different. She's used to Christina. She may say she doesn't know, or they just look at pictures. They spread them out. But that is sort of a big deal. Similarly, books. She loves looking at books. Now, she's also, really hard on books.
Yeah.
She will mark them up with a pen. As she is reading it, she is doodling in it. It's my observation, it's her form of reading it. She may rip pages out. She does. Or rip the cover of a book. So, once again, those books that are important to me, I put out of reach. And also, if she happens to deface or rip up one of my books, they're all replaceable. I'm not going to...
thing.
It's a thing. In the beginning, it made me nuts.
Yeah. This could be one of the most, valuable lessons to be gleaned from this. And it's a key element of mindset, which is a key component of the share-giving philosophy, is that your attachment to things may need to be modified because things are going to suffer, but typically they can be replaced.
Right. So it's two things. Number one, be smart about those things that would bother you if
really
they
be
disappeared
upsetting.
or were destroyed. And so put them out of Barbara's grasp. But also recognizing that, it's going to happen and you should be ready for it. And it's all replaceable. There's really nothing that is not replaceable, reparable in one way or another. So, but that's also another activity.
And you know what? In the worst case, if it's irreplaceable, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
That's right.
And I've had to do that with a few things, especially artwork.
In our house, in my house, with the kids growing up, stuff happened. Whatever it might be, whether it was in school or, on a team or sports, anything negative that happened that you have no control over. In my family, I would say, "What are you going to do?" And they'd say, "Forget about it." And that's it works somehow. What are you going to do? Forget about it. You can't change it. You can't fix it. You can't make it.
That went for Amy as well?
That went for Amy as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
on a good day.
That's sort of
a good day.
That's sort of a big picture
yeah.
approach.
Or else she'll say, "Don't tell me to forget about it." She'll preempt it.
Yeah. Well, you raise a point. When you are caring for somebody that has dementia, in so many respects, it's like revisiting childhood. It's taking things out of their hands
Interesting.
gently.
Yeah.
It is guiding them away from something to something else. And, one of the things about it, because I'm reminded all the time that I've sort of been down this road before, the difference is, especially if you do it gently, and sometimes that's even a challenge.
You do not. The difference is with kids, you can reprimand a kid.
Correct.
You don't reprimand
exactly.
Barbara.
But also, you can know, this is, sadly one of the benefits that, Barbara will forget that she was upset or you were upset, or forget what she did, and you sort of get a pass. She gets a pass. Sometimes it's useful to have. It's like Groundhog Day the next day. It's a new day. And, sometimes you use that to your benefit. But yes, I think
that's a blessing and a curse.
Blessing and a curse. But yeah, so another constant in terms of an activity, I call it reading and writing. And I will always say, and I'd be interested in our audience, I'll always say when we come in, like for gardening and going to take a break, put on some music and say, how about some reading and writing? Are you up for that? Yes, always. Yes. And that usually involves a book that she can scribble in, or that she will literally with her finger go through lines talking.
I have another clip of video that I'll post with Barbara sitting next to me on the couch, poring over 2 pages
of a book.
From a book.
Yeah, exactly.
The rest of the book's not there, but she's got a couple of pages in her hand and is reading them intently.
Right, and I think it reminds me with the photographs that one of the things that we want to do, and I've talked to Samantha about that, is putting together a little movie of, photographs that are a chronology of a life for her that we think is something that can be useful to anybody.
This plays right into the Sharegiver philosophy of network, because your family and friends have photographs.
Right.
And part of this, my philosophy was founded on, video and archival films and images that are often, along with music, the thing that lingers the longest is that attachment.
Right. Moving pictures.
And so we encourage people to invite their network of family and friends to provide those images. And we have plans in the future to help our listeners and help members of Sharegiver Solutions create videos and moving pictures that will achieve just the purpose we're talking about.
Right. And which reminds me that one of the things that is also invaluable, and many people have discovered this, is videotaping family members while they still remember everything, like our mother, who's loaded with memories and loves to talk about it, because at a certain point we don't have that access.
Yeah. I regrettably, I never did that with our dad.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was just there was a thing in me that if I do that, it signifies the end.
Yeah.
I've certainly made videos of hundreds of other people, but there's a little sticking point with my mother and father.
Yeah, so our mother, you got to do it. I know you have a resistance. But she's going to be 95 in a couple of days.
Yes, she will. That's true.
So, I mean,
maybe that's the day we'll do it.
Playing with house money. And that would be a great
we'll sit her
day
down when we're all here.
Yeah, because I had wanted to do something like that at the unveiling. I think that would be a great thing to do.
We'll think about it.
Even organizing it in some type of interview. So good thought. Okay. Think that's not a bad.
Yeah, I don't know that we've gotten to the evening yet, but we certainly talked about ways of passing time meaningfully.
Yeah,
and that's what it's about: passing time meaningfully between, two people who love each other.
Yeah, meaningfully for the person that's your partner and for yourself.
Yeah. Okay, well, that'll cap off another session of Sharegiver, the Sharegiver podcast. We appreciate your listening, and we really value and encourage your participation, your input. You can leave any questions or information or advice on the website, and we really welcome that.
Right.
So,
and you can hear our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and our website.
Yeah. And we'll probably be posting the visual versions on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll have a YouTube. The YouTube channel is Sharegiver, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we want to get the word out because there are 15 or 16 million of us, or I'm not in that situation, thankfully, but there are 15 or 16 million family member caregivers in the U.S., and that number is not going to decrease.
Yep. right.
Okay, thanks everybody. Enjoy. Until next time, Rob and David signing off.
So long.